friends, this is Lauren from Mama's Learning Corner. I'm so glad you joined me here on YouTube today. Make sure you click the red subscribe button in YouTube so you can always get a notification when I publish a new video. And those are usually at the beginning of the week, depending upon how life is going. And it's usually every week that I publish a video during my YouTube season. So I'm glad you're here today. I'm going to show you just a quick video today on how I incorporate a small amount of writing with my little girls. Now my little girls are kindergarten and she's 5.5, and I have a first grader that's almost 7. Just a quick background history. My 5-year-old hasn't showed a lot of interest in reading yet. She's just not ready. So we're doing a lot of reading preparation type of activities, but she's just not quite there for reading yet. And so writing, is a little bit slower with her as well. My first grader reads extremely well, but her fine motor skills still need a lot of work. So while we do a small amount of writing each day, I don't really push her. I know from my homeschool mom experience that her writing will zoom once her fine motor skills can kind of catch up with her brain. So we're just kind of giving her a little bit of time. But we do writing every single day. And this is a quick activity that we probably do 2 or 3 times a week. So if you've followed Mama's Learning Corner at all the past week, you know that we've done a fabulous unit study on fruits and vegetables. It has been so much fun. And there's lots of resources that you can find at Mama's Learning Corner for your own children. But I want to show you how I incorporated writing into this particular unit study with fruits and vegetables. Now this writing activity is meant to be short. Children this little just don't need to spend a lot of time sitting at a desk and writing. I mean, there's plenty of years to do that. I much prefer hands-on type learning in the earlier grades, but writing definitely has its place. They need to know how to form letters and put letters together to make words, and words for sentences, and later on sentences for paragraphs. So lots of times it's me writing, and I just model what nice legible handwriting looks like, and then we go over each sentence together and talk about the parts of a sentence. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I want to show you the 3 books that we're using in our fruits and vegetables study. The first one is From Plant to Seed, and these are all by Gail Gibbons, who is one of my favorite children's authors. The Vegetables We Eat, and also The Fruits We Eat. And these are what I consider to be our spine resources for our fruit and vegetable unit study. Packed with great information. These are nonfiction books. However, there's another book that we're reading called How Groundhog's Garden Grew, and it is by Lynn Cherry. Now, you can do this particular writing activity with any book. That's what's so beautiful about it. You can totally tailor it to your child's needs. If they are nonfiction fans, by all means use a nonfiction book. If they respond more to a fiction type story, then by all means use a fiction book. And just for this study, we're going to use How Groundhog's Garden Grew. And it's this super cute little story of a groundhog and how he plants a garden and he monitors it through the seasons and sees how the seeds change. Just really cute. Packed with good information about vegetables especially. And so after we read this book, my little girls and I are going to sit at the table together. And since they're close in age, they're about 19 months apart, I often teach them together, even though they are at vastly different stages in terms of learning. As I said, one is really reading well and one doesn't have any interest in reading yet. I can still teach them together with lots of subjects, and writing is one of them. So we're going to read our book, How Groundhog's Garden Grew, and then they're each going to get a piece of paper. Sometimes I use this particular paper, and you probably use this yourself if you went to traditional school. It has the area at the top for a picture, and then it has the writing lines at the bottom. I love this paper. We use it all the time. It is a little bit thin, so if there is, if my daughter has to erase, which, is inevitable at this age, it can tear through the paper pretty easy. However, I love that there's a space for a picture at the top. So it's my mission to find this style of paper in a thicker weight. So I'll leave a link if I find one of those. So far I haven't, but I really enjoy this paper. The other option, and this is my favorite paper that I found so far, is this style of paper. And it's lines from top to bottom, and there's a good amount of space in between for those lower letters that go down like G or P or Q. And it's also raised when you touch it. It has a definite stopping point for your pencil at the bottom of the line. I really like that. And my first grader really likes that. And plus, she's just a very tactile girl. So she typically has this paper. And then I give her like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper to draw a picture. So my girls and I are sitting at the table. We've read our story. They each have the piece of paper that they need. And here are the easy things that we do. We talk about every single part of the story. We talk about the author, the illustrator, what year it was written. We talk about the characters and how they interacted. We talk about the setting or the scene. Was there a problem in the story? Was there a conflict? If so, how did it resolve? You know, all those parts that make a story really interesting. And this is, of course, with a fiction book. So we go over each part of that story. And then my girls and I brainstorm what aspect of the story do they want to write about. So for this particular book, do they want to write what vegetables the groundhog planted in his garden? Do they want to talk about how the seasons changed? Do they want to talk about Groundhog's reaction to his vegetable garden and how excited he was? You know, I help them narrow down what exactly it is that they want to write about. So just to recap, we're at the table where we read the story. We have a conversation about what the story was about and the different elements of the story. And then I discuss with each girl what aspect of the story they want to focus on. And sometimes it's the same, but oftentimes it's different. They're different girls and they have different interests. So next, depending upon what piece of paper they have, they draw a picture about the aspect of the story they want to discuss. And so after they do that, this is where the writing piece comes. And really, y'all, it's so simple. But I think it has a lot of value. So for my little girl, my 5-year-old who still isn't reading, one of two things happens. She tells me several words that she would like to write down related to the story. So in this case, it might be groundhog or seed or vegetable or garden, or I let her choose 3 or 4 words and I write them on a piece of paper. As she watches me write them, I model them for her. And then she writes them to the best of her ability on her own paper. Sometimes that's too much writing for her. It kind of just depends on what else we've done that day in terms of school and what other writing has taken place. If that's the case, then she draws the picture and I just model the words for her on her paper and I write them myself. And we talk about, you know, a letter never starts at the bottom. You know, this is how you make a G, or, you know, whatever else it is that she's struggling with. So that's my little girl. So she has a picture on her paper with 4 or 5 words at the very most. For my first grader, she writes 1 to 2 sentences. And oftentimes I will model those on a piece of paper and then she copies those onto her own lined paper that I showed you before. Sometimes she wants to write those all on her own. If there's really hard words in there like vegetable or I don't know, garden, those would be difficult words for her to spell in just the first grade. So I write those particular words on a piece of paper, and then when she gets to that part of her sentence, she copies my word onto her paper. But it's a great opportunity to talk about capital letters at the beginning of a sentence, people's names, how you capitalize a person's name even if it's in the middle of a sentence. Great opportunity to talk about end marks, you know, period, question mark, exclamation point. You can talk about nouns and verbs. You can even talk about adjectives or adverbs if you feel like, you know, your young one can take all of that in. You know, it's just a really good time to talk about the parts of a sentence, what makes up a sentence, and the different parts of speech, how you can even talk about the tense of a verb. Is this something that was done a long time ago, or is this something that's happening right now? So there's just really good conversations that can take place from this very, very simple writing activity. So no, this is definitely not some new writing technique or, you know, the next best thing in teaching children to write. This is just a really simple foundational activity that you can pull together at the spur of a moment. It doesn't take any preparation for you as mom except to have the paper available and a book and a pencil. I love like low prep things. So even though it's low prep and low stress for you as a mom, it is packed with value for them. They're sitting with you and interacting with you about this book, which is valuable in and of itself. And then there's the discussion that takes place about the book, and then the writing about the book. So it'll just, it's just a great foundational step for what will prepare them for later writing in the later years. And I can see how that would have been really beneficial for my 3rd and 5th graders that I have now if we had done activities like this. But I just didn't know as a homeschool mom back then what some good foundational writing activities were. But now that I do, I can use those with my younger girls. So if you have great writing activity ideas, I'd love to hear those. You can leave it here in a comment on YouTube, or you can comment on this post over at Mama's Learning Corner, or shoot me an email. It's mama, M-A-M-A, at mamaslearningcorner.com. And I'd love for you to stop by Mama's Learning Corner. There's tons of ideas, learning ideas for preschool through 2nd or 3rd grade. Lots of activities and printables, and especially unit study ideas and how to implement those in your home, how to plan an easy unit study with your preschooler through 2nd grader. So I'd love to see you there.